There.
I am fine.
Really?
You know,
Y'all know I gotta make some. Y'all gotta make you laugh. The Elder Hines
yes,
just seems so
yes.
sad tonight, but I gotta do it.
I'm trying to be up. I'm really
I
trying.
know.
I'm
It's
trying.
some days
Well,
it's just like that though.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes,
mhm,
yes.
mhm.
I was grateful for service today. That was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
That
Yeah.
was
Didn't
so
you
so.
had somebody else pass too, didn't you, Victoria?
Yes, a cousin,
A
a
cousin.
cousin. Yeah, his
Sorry.
funeral was Saturday
Mm,
Mhm,
as well, in
mm,
New York. So of course I couldn't go.
mm.
mm.
Okay.
We all good.
On a lighter note, my baby sister turned 1.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we may not have a full week in review, but you have an announcement, so you
That's
can
There you
announce
go.
about your
Yeah.
baby sister.
All right,
That's
That's
folks,
right.
it's time
nice.
to roll the open.
all
Okay.
right.
Here
Okay.
we go.
Roll them, Ellen.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening. You have tuned into Authors Up in case you didn't know where you were this evening. We're right here at ALH Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Streaming Inspirational Broadcast Network. And we are so glad that you are with us tonight. We say it all the time. You could be anywhere doing anything, but the fact that you chose to spend this part of your day
Mhm.
with us, we are very, very glad about it. And we have a wonderful guest on tonight. I tell you, you're going to love this lady, and she has an amazing book. And
Yes.
we're going to be talking about her book. She's going to be talking about her book and giving us some nuggets and some good things that we need to know. Good evening, Linda Cooks. Glad to
Hey,
have you
Linda.
on the line with us tonight. We usually open our program with the week in review, but we're not going to do that tonight. But I first want to give my co host an opportunity to tell you good evening. How about you, Victoria? You want to welcome our guest tonight? All right, look
Good
at
evening, everybody. You can't see the
Oh, we got
waves,
the
some of
both
us.
way. Look
both hands, huh?
Hello, bronze girls. I missed you.
How about you, Ruth? You have a word of welcome for our listeners.
Well, I just want to say welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I don't have a double wave going on, but maybe jazz hands. So thank
What
you
was
for
that I
joining us.
just did last?
Yes.
Sancho. But I tell you what, Ruth is hiding out. She's not even in the
Mm-mm.
area.
Nope.
So we're
Mm.
not mad at you though, Ruth. We're
No, we're
glad
not mad at you.
No, it's not a beach, but it's not home either. So
it's not
it's just a
home.
Okay.
It's
different
not
setting.
home.
Okay.
There you
Different
go.
setting.
Different setting. Different setting.
And it's always
Well,
nice to change that a little bit.
Mhm.
like I was saying, though, we usually open with a our week in review. We're doing things a little bit differently this evening. But before I tell you what we're doing, Ruth does have an announcement to make. Ruth, what
Yes.
is your announcement?
But my baby sister turned 1 this week.
So cute. She's so
Cute.
So,
cute.
She
yes.
is the cutest thing. She's just what do they call her? Cuteness overload. She
Yes,
is just
Yes.
she
just
is
as
just
precious as she can be. Oh,
yes, I will have to like post pictures of her on our site because she is just the cutest little thing I mean,
she.
just I'm a little
Can't wait to meet her in
biased.
person.
I
I
know, right?
know.
But she
When are you gonna have her down this way?
Well, that really is up to mom and dad.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah,
We
no,
think we
I'm
can go
just,
grab her, but
no, I'm just the big sister, so that doesn't hold a whole lot of water yet.
Not
So,
yet.
oh,
Well,
not
we'll have to
yet.
do
So,
something about that because she is
hmm
really just a cutie patootie.
yes,
and I
she
think
is.
she's gonna have a nice Christmas box coming.
Oh yeah,
Find
yeah.
out her
It's a
sizes,
wonderful
please.
time.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm
It is a wonderful time for her.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what we're up to tonight. We're going to get started with our guest in just a moment. But at the very end of the show, we really want you to hang in there with us for just a few extra seconds. Some of you know, some of you may not know that we lost one of our authors and a dear friend, Monique Hedeker Green. And at the very end of the show, we want to say some things about her and honor her rather than starting our program tonight talking about our week. So please hang in there for that. Please hang in there for that. But for right now, Ruth is going to tell you about our guest for tonight. Not Ruth, Victoria. Victoria, that's your charge for
Okay,
tonight.
that
I'm
that is
sorry.
going to be me tonight.
I'm sorry.
That's
Yes, well, I messed
okay.
up.
That is
It's Ruth
okay.
2.0.
Yeah, how about that? Well, tonight we always excited about our author, so tonight is no different. Well, let me tell you a little bit about her. Terry Boyle McDougall is an executive and career coach and CEO of Terry B. McDougall Coaching. She helps high achieving professionals remove obstacles that keep them stuck so they can enjoy more success and satisfaction in their lives and careers. Before becoming a coach, Terry was a longtime corporate marketing executive where she led teams, developed strategies, and advised senior leaders to drive business results. She is the author of Winning the Game of Work, Career Happiness, and Success on Your Own Terms. We'll be talking about that tonight. She is also the host of the Marketing Mambo podcast. Well, after a short break, we will return to welcome Terry and we'll talk about this awesome book.
All right, all right, all right. There she is. There she is. Welcome,
Welcome.
Terry.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. Good to see you, ladies.
Good
Good
to
to, good to see you.
you.
Good to see
Too.
you.
Well, Terry, we want to thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate having you on.
I appreciate you having me on. This is really great. I'm glad to be among your authors and authors up.
Well, thank you. Now, your book. See, look, we starting a
That's
movement
it. Gotta
here.
have hand wave.
Everybody's got their own twist.
Okay, enough silliness.
Okay.
Your book is a little really. Your book is a little different than what we usually feature, but I feel like it's something that has a really broad appeal. I mean, we all want career happiness. We all want success on our own terms. We spend 40 hours a week on our jobs, and I actually did the math, and that's about a third of our waking hours.
Yeah.
We all want some kind of fulfillment, but we often don't find it. So I think your book, Winning the Game of Work, is something that we can all get behind. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it actually started off as a series of blog posts. I left my corporate job in 2017, and I actually had been at that company for 12 years. And I would say I was very happy with that job for about 10 out of the 12 years.
Mhm.
And the last couple years, I found myself in a job that I never applied for. I didn't really feel like it was a good fit, and but my boss really wanted me to do that job. And just in a couple years of trying and feeling like it never was a great fit, I actually decided to leave the organization. And when I left, we were talking about this a little bit before
Mhm.
the episode started today, that a lot of times I think that even if we don't realize it, a lot of our identity is tied up in what we do for work.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
just as part of maybe my process for I thought of it as detoxing, detoxing from sort of a bit of a toxic work environment. I started writing. I started thinking about, like, okay, what were some of the lessons that I learned? What were some of the things that happened that I want to share with other people to normalize it for them? So that was really the seeds of the book. And I did that blog for a couple years.
Mhm.
And then somebody actually asked me, well, how many words do you have? I had no idea. So I downloaded everything and I actually had about 25,000 words. And he said, you have enough for a book. And
Book.
so then somebody introduced me to a book writing program, and I didn't just download everything and just put it into a book, but it was the beginning of the book. And I wrote a lot more, and I interviewed people about their careers. But it's really the hard-won lessons that I learned. A lot of things that, when I got into the workplace, I thought that if you did certain things, that that's all you had to do to be successful. And it didn't take me too long to learn that, a lot of things that we do outside of work or we do at school that help us be successful there don't translate into the workplace.
Right.
And
Right.
I was frustrated a lot of times because I really felt like I was doing what I should be doing and I didn't see the results of moving up or getting raises or stuff like that. So as I did learn, I had some good mentors. I made some mistakes. I hired coaches. I didn't want other people to be in the same situation I was. I wanted to share those lessons. So that was really the reason why I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long did it take you to write it once you realized you had a book? How long was that process?
I started it. I was in a book writing program, so they
Mhm.
kept you at a certain pace. I started in July of 2019, and the book came out in April of 2020. So right after the pandemic lockdown.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, how has the reception been for the book?
I am getting a lot of good reception
Awesome.
from it. I mean, a lot of people, it's still selling. I probably make enough to take my family to McDonald's every month. um,
That's
We
important.
know
um,
that.
but I've been on
Yeah,
a lot of podcasts to talk about it, and
Good.
that's
Good.
awesome.
people do tell me that they really like it. I've had people that have reached out and said, I read this chapter and I feel like you were talking directly to me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Because I talk about my real experiences, and a lot of them are embarrassing, humiliating, frustrating. I mean, I talk about, terrible boss that I had and going for the same job twice and not getting it either time.
Wow.
Just, some of the things that are really disappointing.
Yeah.
But, if you can reframe things or if you can learn some of the little, tips and tricks, we can shift our mindset to actually get the things that we want out of work. But it might just mean that we have to go at it a little bit differently than maybe what we thought.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let me ask this now. You mentioned with the reception from the book, do you find that you connect more from a work perspective or do people connect to your work perspective or do people connect to the fact that you're a woman in the workplace perspective?
That's a good question. I mean, as a coach, I work with both men and women.
Mhm.
I do think that some of the issues that I ran into and that I write about are probably more common with women,
Mhm.
because quite frankly, I think that the workplace, it's, men created it,
Mhm.
and it's their playground, if you will.
Yeah.
And, the rest of us coming into it, we have to figure out what the rules are, right? I think a lot of times And I've actually talked about this on other podcasts about how, you know, if you're not a white man coming into this situation, I mean, there were many times when I was in the workplace that I was the only woman in a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and it it takes some courage, and it also there's sometimes sort of an unspoken language that they already understand that I don't. And so, you know, you're trying to be heard, you're trying to figure out what's going on there, and it's not always obvious, it's not always easy. And certainly I think that there's a lot of bias as well, that probably a lot of people would say, oh no, I'm not biased, but I don't think that they recognize that they are, just because,
Right.
you know, if this is what you've grown up in, you just think that that's just normal, and they don't realize that there's, you know, it's not built for people that are not like them.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I also think that sometimes they don't think that it needs to be, you know, that
Right.
there's nothing to be gained from getting other perspectives. And, you know, I've seen it time and again that, you know, huge business mistakes can be made whenever people aren't listened to, because there's a lot
Mhm.
of wisdom in the organizations. And if things can be set up so that more people can be heard, there's going to be more wisdom that can be used to make those decisions.
Right.
Um, but, you know, when I wrote the book is really about, you know, unfortunately we can't blow up the workplace and start all over. So like, how do we as employees go in and learn how this game of work is played, learn the rules, the quote unquote
Mhm.
rules of the game of work, and understand how you can become a more savvy player. You know, it's advocating for yourself. It's asking for the things that you want. It's, you know, looking for those opportunities to demonstrate your skills and your abilities, so that, you know, because I think a lot of people think that it's going to be sort of like school, like where, okay, you're done with 10th grade, we're going to promote you to 11th grade.
Mhm.
And in the workplace, it's not like that. You know, they'll just leave you over there in the corner forever, and unless you raise your hand and say, I can do more than this, and I want to do more than this, and I'm going to demonstrate that I can. Um, so
Okay. Do you still blog, or do you have?
no, I'm doing podcasts now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a huge shiny object person, and meaning that I'm just very, very curious, and
Mhm.
I probably do way too many things, because I have my own podcast, I'm on other podcasts,
Mhm.
and I'm a coach, so I'm talking to people every day, just because that's what I do for a
Okay.
living, you know. But I had a lot of fun doing the blogs in the beginning, and now I think
Right.
that my creative energy is going more into
Oh yeah.
um, podcasts.
You've evolved, or you're
I
evolving.
have,
Yes.
I have,
Sounds
yeah.
familiar, doesn't it?
All right, Victoria, what you got?
Well, I say that sounds familiar because that's how my book uh, got published, because I was doing a blog, and I still do the blog,
Mhm.
not as often as I did before, but it's still out there. So, but that's how my book came to be. And so when you said that, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds very familiar."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
let's just talk about your book. I love the concept of it. So let's just delve into it. Work is a game. How is work a game? Please explain that.
Well, you know, I think a lot, like I was saying earlier, I think that a lot of us can just look at it and say, well, if you just go to work every day and you just, you know, you work 8 hours and you do your work, that you're going to get somebody's going to come along and pat you on the shoulder and say, okay, we're ready to promote you. And it is not like that. You know, we have to really advocate for ourselves.
Mhm.
Well, and I think the thing that I would say also is that work's a game and nobody ever tells you the rules.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
if
true.
you're lucky enough to have a mentor, which I will say that at a certain point in my career, I did have a mentor who I feel like in many ways he pulled back the curtain and he started pointing out very specific things that were going on around me. And
Mhm.
I was like a babe in the woods. I had no idea, you know, because I would say things like, well, you know, these two guys both, you know, they're both leaders in this department. And why aren't they not working together? And he'd say,
Right.
well, because they're competing for the next level up. They do not
Mm.
want the other one to succeed. And I was like, what? I mean, to me, I was like, don't we all work for the same company? I was like
Right.
Pollyanna, you know? And it got me thinking, like, he was the first person that really made me look at everybody around me and say, "Okay, if we're in a game, everybody around me is a player,
Mhm.
okay? And
Mhm.
I have to understand what their motivations are because their motivations might be very different than mine. So they're gonna play the quote unquote game differently, right? But I've seen it plenty of times. I've had it happen to myself, but I've seen plenty of times with my coaching clients that you know they won't protect themselves. They'll play the game very
Mhm.
dangerously. They will
Right.
speak out of turn, which comes back
Mm.
to bite them.
Mm.
They will, you know, I used to always tell people on my team whenever I was a marketing director is I'd say, you know, play a good game of offense, which I meant do a good job, do your job, but play a good game of defense too, which means look over your shoulder, understand what's going on around you.
Right,
If
right, right.
somebody's talking, you know, rumors or talking, you know, negatively about you, go nip that in the bud because in the workplace and especially in these bigger, you know, political, complex companies, people can start believing rumors, you
True.
know, and or there can be misperceptions about things and you know what do they say, like the rumor can make it all the way around the world before the truth gets out of bed. You got to look to make sure because there are also people that are not don't have your best interests at heart. I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, right? Not everybody is your friends at work and,
Mhm.
you know, we are sometimes competing with people for promotions or whatever. And you just have to think a little bit more 360 about what's going on. Not just come in and like head down, I'm just going to do my
Mhm.
work and think that I'll just be rewarded for putting in my hours. So it's really the game of work is really thinking a little more broadly about what's going on around you and realizing that there's some strategy to it if you really want to win.
Okay, and that kind of leads into, is that what you mean by learning the rules of the game? Like your part two of the book is talk about learning the rules of the game when you're
Mhm.
dealt, like when you're dealt a bad hand, coping with toxic
Mhm.
work situations,
Mhm.
and also you talk about some of the myths and lies that keep you stuck. And I
Mhm.
don't want you to tell it all because we want our listeners and to
Yeah.
get the book. But
Yes.
what can you talk about that, learning the rules of the game, and what are some of the myths and lies, in your opinion, that keeps us stuck?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is around mindset. You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot of times we do tell ourselves things to protect us from disappointment. You know, we may say like, "Oh, I'm not ready to throw my hat in the ring for that promotion," or "They would never hire me," or you know, we'll tell ourselves things like this, but then at the
Right.
same time, maybe be disappointed that we're not moving up as quickly as we'd like to, and or we're not getting the opportunities. Other people are getting these opportunities, and you know, I think it's very easy. I use this analogy a lot where you know, if you ever seen rugby, you know, and they're in the scrum and they're all just like all in this big huddle over the ball and pushing and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of times that's how we treat work. That we're just
Mhm.
like in the middle of the struggle and we're just pushing and we're not really getting anywhere. And
Mhm.
I think I don't know anything about rugby, so it's probably completely against the strategy of rugby. But I always think,
Okay.
you know, move back, like zoom out a little bit and get
Mhm.
a picture of the whole field of what's going on around you because a lot of times you may be able to find a path to get to the place where you want to go. But so often we just think there's just one way to do it. And,
Right.
you know, this is the only way
Right.
you can do it. And it's limiting. It's very limiting. And, you know, like, for example, I used to offer people in my department opportunities to volunteer for the United Way or volunteer for other things within the company. And sometimes people say, oh, no, I'm too busy. I'm way too busy. I can't do that. And I'd say, okay, well, this is a great opportunity for you to start meeting people throughout the rest of the company, or maybe
Right.
get to know senior level executives who are the sponsors of these different projects or whatever. And I think that it can be very easy to be so focused on like what's right in front of you and not realize that there's a lot more opportunities that maybe can get you to where you want to go faster than just like this one path that you're on. And I,
Yes.
in the book, I actually use this analogy that it's sort of like, you know, if you're on the highway, and under normal circumstances, the highway is the fastest way to get there, but there's a traffic jam. And somebody's, you know, maybe on the radio, they're saying like, okay, get off at this exit and take these back roads. And people are saying, no, I don't want to take the back roads. That's not the fastest way to go.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
you know, you have to sometimes realize that sometimes that, you know, conventional wisdom is not the right path. Like you might be able to take a different path and get there quicker.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, my last question is about this. You talk about celebrating your victories, and I'm gonna say it. You know, I work with some people that are pretty negative, and some of them are
Mm-hmm.
sort of near retirement age. You know, not
Mm-hmm.
putting anybody down, but they're like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
only doing but so much because that's it. But what do you say to the person who you're like, okay, celebrate your victories, but what victories? All I do is work, work, work. I'm that hamster on a
Mm-hmm.
wheel. I'm just, cranking out the work.
Mm-hmm.
Victories do I have to celebrate? What do you say to a person like that?
Yeah, I think that listen, work's not always fun. I'd be the first one to say that. Sometimes it can be a real grind. But I also, again, I would say like if you can step back and say, you know, why am I here? What's the
Right.
purpose of me being here? I've said I've told a lot of my clients, I can't remember if this made it into the book or not, but there's really only three ways to add value at work. It's either if it's a for-profit company, you're helping them
Hmm.
make money, save money, or reduce risk. And that
Mhm.
in some ways might be a little bit depressing, right? Where you're like, oh, it's just about money. It's a
Make,
business, so it
save.
is about
Yeah.
money.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But you're making money through, you know, delivery of a service, selling a product, or
Hmm.
whatever. And if you can step back and say, well, you know, I'm helping to make the world safer, you know,
Right.
or I'm helping people to manage their money better, and tie why you show up every day to that greater reason that the organization exists.
Right.
I think that can be helpful. And I also, I mean, to me, I got a lot of satisfaction out of just helping people just every day at work, whether that was, you know, talking with the head of a business and
That's me.
understanding, yeah, what's their problem? I am here to solve problems, right? And
Yes.
so what's your problem? I want to understand that. I want to make your job easier. So, I mean, I worked for a bank so that they could go out and make more money for the bank. But that's good
Right.
for everybody. That's good for the people that they're working with as well. Um, or it could be just something as simple as, you know, if somebody's administrative assistant came to me and they needed something for marketing, they need some brochures, they need a sweatshirt with our logo on it or whatever. If I can
Right.
help them make their day better, to me, I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. And
Mhm.
um, we have control over what we think about, you know.
Yes,
So
we
if
do.
people choose to say, well, you know, I'm just going to mark the days off until retirement,
Oh
you know, like
gosh.
that's just sad. It's sad
Yeah.
because then what are they going to do then? Like it seems like their purpose is just for time to pass. Um, what are they going to do then? You know, but we can all find that purpose right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Find your
Right.
purpose. Find your
Right.
purpose. Well, I
Yes.
could keep on going, but I think I'll stop now. And
Okay, well, thank you,
hand you over to
Victoria.
Andrew. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Terry, I tell you, I like the book because it makes us go on a journey of self-discovery in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And I think that one of the things that we have a tendency to do is we'll read a book and we'll think, oh, that's a great book, and we finish and we kind of put it over to the side. But as I've told you before we started the program, this is kind of my textbook for life, because there is so much in here that's not just work related. And, you know,
Yeah.
it is our mindset. It is the way that we think about things. It is the way that we approach things. And you do that through the different exercises that you have within these chapters, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And I like the fact that there's somewhere in the book that you say you don't have to read it straight through.
Oh, right. No.
Take
They
a
can
look.
dive in wherever.
That's right. Take a look and just kind of jump into the part that really interests you. And Marcia said something earlier too about negative self-talk keeping us stuck. And I think
Yeah.
that kind of goes along with understanding your value and just being able to leverage. And what you said just a moment ago about understanding that we have control. We have a huge amount of control
Yeah.
that we don't exercise, that we don't even realize that we have. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about tips and productivity. I think it was something. Let me see if I can find where I'm talking about it. Yes, tips and tricks for productivity. And I think that is an area, I don't care what it is you're doing. I don't care whether it is work. I don't care whether it is at home, church, whatever. We can get into the busy cycle.
Yes.
Where we're busy moving, but we're not really accomplishing anything, and we're not getting to the outcome that we really want to get to. So tell us a little bit about the tips and tools of productivity.
Yeah, this is actually something that I end up working a lot with my coaching clients on, and what I call it finding the points of leverage. Because this happens at home, it happens at work, but so often, people will, they'll say, oh, I was just so busy all day and I got nothing done. Right. And that's so easy for any of us to get sucked into things that are not really moving us towards the goal. And so I think it's important to step back and keep in mind, like, what's the impact that I'd like to have? What's the objective, whether it's home or work? And, just a few things that I work with people on this at work, but you could do it at home too. It's like, what can I delegate? Right? Do I need to do everything myself, or can I divide things up and have other people help me? And by the way, I'll just give you a quick example of this. My husband and I had a cleaning lady for years, but during COVID, that just wasn't something that we could do anymore. And so our house was getting really messy because we were both working. And so what I did was I just wrote down everything that needed to be done in the house. And I started telling my kids, my husband and my kids, okay, Saturday, we're going to have a cleaning day. And I want everybody to keep coming back to the list and taking something and doing it until everything's done. And so that's delegation, right? We can do that, and we can, but so often we just don't. And I've seen it I've done it at work where we just say, oh, it's just faster for me to do it myself. Right. But we really need to be focusing on doing our highest value work. And it doesn't mean that other things don't need to be done, but maybe somebody else can do those, can help us with that. Other things are, making sure that you're prioritizing. It's very, there's this thing called, Dwight D. Eisenhower came up with this thing. I don't think he called it the Eisenhower box, but that's what it's called. I actually learned about it in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And on one axis, it has urgency, and on the other axis, it has importance. And when something is urgent, whether it's important or not, we tend to focus on it. And then when things, if something's not important, we don't typically focus on it. But the things that get left behind are the things that are important but not urgent. And if we can, really keep an eye on our priority list and make sure that we're making time for those things that are important but not urgent. And if something is urgent but not important, and then maybe that's something that you have somebody else do. If something's not important, not urgent, we probably don't need to be doing it at all. But we, if we can look at our to-do list through that lens, that can help us figure out, like, okay, what order do we need to do things in? And then there's a lot of other little tips, like time or task batching. Because a lot of times, I'm certainly guilty of this. My computer dings and I'm like, oh, I got an email, right? Doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'll stop and go look at that. And if we can discipline ourselves to say, I'm going to only answer my emails a couple times a day. I'm going to put that on my calendar. I'm going to do that then, because then we can go deeper and we can focus on the more important work rather than having what I consider to be our most valuable resource, which is our focus. Our focus gets, frittered away when we're when our attention is pulled in a million different directions. We can just never go deep enough to really focus and concentrate. And, I think that when we can plan our days better, we can prioritize and delegate and task batch, that we can probably get more work done in less time because we are focused. We are using the right resource for the right task.
Right. I wanted to ask you too, how difficult is it I saw this somewhere in the book about aligning your strengths and preferences with what you do for a living. How difficult is that for you?
Well, I honestly think that everybody should do that. Obviously, if we're in jobs, we can't just be like, okay, I'm just going to throw it all away. But if we can say, what am I good at and what do I like to do, and then try to find a job that takes advantage of that, that's where we're going to be the happiest. And I can't remember if I put this in the book or not, but I do have to, I need to do a shout out to Daphne Hubbard, which was my boyfriend's mom when I was in college. She gave me the book, What Color is Your Parachute? And when I first got out of college, she said, do not interview, do not apply for any jobs until you read this book and you do all the exercises. And that was the first time that it even occurred to me that you should like what you do for a living, that you should look at yourself and say, what am I good at? And look for jobs that use that. Because when I was growing up, I worked at an ice cream store. I worked at a cannery. I was a waitress. You just went where they had jobs, right? You're like, I just want to make money. And when I was getting out of college, that's kind of how I was too. I was like, I just want a job. I want a job that pays me more than the $5 an hour I made at the library in college. And she got me thinking differently because she made me read that book, and that got me on the path to marketing. And that was good because I am a creative person, and I got paid for 30 years to bring my creativity to work. And so that was nice. But I know a lot of times people are doing things that they might even be really good at it, but they don't like it.
Right.
That's kind of miserable.
Wow.
There's a quote that you had too that I'm not sure that it was yours. It may have been from one of the people that you included, but it says, you may not, and I love this, you may not recognize things about yourself that others can see clearly.
Yes.
Can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. Man, I love that.
I don't know who came up with that. I use that almost every single day. I love that quote because it's so true, right? We're just walking around like, hey, I'm just being me, right? And I have seen it so often with many of my clients where they are so talented and they're so smart and they're like, there's nothing special about me. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like this is so innate to you that you don't even recognize it. But it is important sometimes for people to have somebody hold a mirror up and say, this is what's special about you. This is what you're good at. Like, have confidence that you're bringing something special when you bring this thing about yourself to work.
I think that is wonderful. Think that is wonderful. I know Victoria has something that she wants to say, but before she does, because we're almost out of time, Terry, but I would like to ask you if there are a couple of things that you think are just so, really, really important that you want to leave our listeners with before we close out tonight. Because I tell you, well, I'm going to let Victoria say what she needs to say, but I think it is just a great book, great tools, just great tools. It's almost, like I said, like a resource manual for life. And the exercises in there they are they can be life changing, I believe,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it will shift you. It really will. It really will. Thank you so much for being with us, Terry. Victoria's got to say something. Come on, Victoria. I know you waited.
I said it a little bit earlier. Get the book, get the book, get the book. That's my tagline. Get the book. Listeners and viewers, get this book. I mean,
Yeah.
it is it's phenomenal. And just
Yeah.
just having a conversation with you tonight, it just confirms some of the things. I just went through a two-day training, and it was on time management and things like what you're talking about. And I actually this past week started using you called it task batching,
Pass
but they
back.
called it
Hmm.
work blocks. It's the same
Hmm.
thing. And
Yeah.
I actually went through my calendar and made a schedule of tasks, and I found that I did accomplish some things much more quickly than I would just randomly, things coming.
Yeah.
So that
And it
works. That
feels
works.
good too, doesn't
It
it? When you're
did.
like,
It did.
woo, victory, I got
I
something
did
done.
it.
Yeah, it feels really
So
good.
please tell our viewers and our listeners how they can get in touch with you and where they can get the book.
Yes, and what I'd like to do first, though, is just to leave
Yes.
everybody with one little thing, which is that every single one of you has gifts that you were given when you came here to Earth, and I
Yes.
believe that everybody's the mission is to figure out what's your purpose for being here. Like
Yes.
don't compare yourself to other people. Find out what's special about you and know that that's your mission to make that happen. I think that that's, when we find what do we like to do, what are we good at, go find some place that you can do that. You're going to be happy and you're going to be successful and you can do that. So where you can find me, I have a website, terrybmcdougall.com. My
Okay.
book, Winning the Game of Work, is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to get LinkedIn with any of your listeners. So thank you
Okay.
so much for
Great.
having me.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Thank you
being
so
with
much for
us.
being here. We totally enjoyed having you.
Thank you.
Look forward to being with you again, Terry. We're going to bring you back, okay?
Okay. All right. I would love that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank
Okay.
you again.
All right. Thank you. Bye
Listeners,
bye.
listeners, hang in there for just a moment. We told you in the beginning we weren't going to do our usual week in review because we wanted to focus the end of our broadcast on I'm not even going to say on some sad news, because this was something that someone, I should say, that just brought so much joy to our lives. And I'm talking about Monique Hediker Green. And each of us wanted to just say a little something about her tonight. And actually, I'm going to start with Victoria and then go to Ruth, and then I'll finish up if that's okay.
That's fine. Um, I'm gonna miss our friend Nikki. I am. To me, Nikki was just larger than life. She had a way of making you feel like she was just all in there with you. And I remember for me this year, I contracted COVID earlier this year. And I didn't tell everybody at first. I just told a few people and asked them to pray for us. And I didn't spend a lot of time on Facebook because I was quite frankly sick, just really sick. And when I did come back on and made a little video and tell everybody, thank you for praying and thanking people, she immediately inboxed me and said, Vic, why did you tell me you had COVID? And I said, baby, you going through so much your own self. I just didn't want to worry you. And she was like, well, you should have told me. you know, and because I could have at least been praying. And then she was absolutely right. So in that moment, she told that, sometimes it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to need help. And it's okay to ask for help because people who care about you want to know what's going on with you and want to be there for you. So she taught me that. And from that, I ended up checking in on her like almost every other week, making sure you're okay. And towards the last couple of weeks, I sent her 2 messages of voice. Like, I just wanted you to hear my voice, sweetie. And she answered me back with her voice. So I have that now, and so I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that we got a chance to know each other. I'm grateful that she was in my life. And though I'm going to miss her tremendously, she left a lot of lessons for me to follow after, how to push through the pain and just to live life limitless. That was her
That's what
tagline,
you say
to
all the
live out loud, to just live each day. And that's what I'm going to strive for. That's how I'm going to remember Nikki.
time. And Ruth?
Well, I had the pleasure of working with her on her book. I had seen her at church. We, beyond the greetings and everything, we didn't have a relationship like that. But when we started working on the book, I don't know why she approached me in the end of February. So it would have been, no, yeah, the end of January. And she said, I want the book out by my birthday. And I don't know why I said yes. Because that anybody else, I would have said no. But I said yes to her. And together, she and I, we created a miracle because there was no way I could have published a book like that in 2 months. And to
Beautiful.
get it out and to have it received the way it was just perfect like her. So, that experience will stay with me. Just being able to do that, you know, I will certainly miss her. I know she's in a better place. And, to leave that experience behind,
Hmm.
that's just special to me.
Yes.
Monique Hediger Green. For those of you who did not know her, Monique was battling metastatic breast cancer. She was a fighter. She was a fighter. She was the second program that I brought on to ALH Broadcasting, and it was Tea Talk and Testimony every Monday night at 7 p.m. And she would put things on Facebook, Lunchtime Love. She would put it out there, and I say she will be known for the way she loved and for the life that she lived. She was just an amazing lady. We love her. This is another time that we will still say, get the book. Nothing can
Yeah.
separate
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's her story. It is her story. And what a phenomenal story it is. So before we go with our regular outro, we're just going to take a few seconds here and let you think about Nikki, and if you feel so led to pray for her family. And we're just going to take a minute to just say goodbye. We'll see her again, though. That we will.